what's kind of key is taking action on what you learn. So for myself, we did this workshop in Honoka'a. The first time we did it was in Honoka'a several years ago. And I actually didn't do anything. I didn't take the information and put it and apply it. And on our property in Kalapa, we had a old plantation building, and it was interesting. But during Izell, which hit the Puna side of the island, a gust of wind came through Hamakua, kind of freakishly strong. It lifted the building up and dropped it, and it split in half. So the moral to the story is, you get a lot of good stuff here, but you should go home and apply it, because otherwise you'll be like me and really sad that your historic structure is kind of broken in half now. All right, but thank you very much for taking your time. You're kind of informal today, so if you feel the need for more refreshments and more energy, please go help yourself in the back. If there are any questions, then I think Dennis folks will be happy to entertain you folks on that. And Kate, thank you.
Good evening. It's unusual. Normally I have to bring it down. I'm kind of on the short side, but that's okay. As stated, I'm Barry Perriott. I'm with your Hawaii County Civil Defense Agency, and I would like to thank you all for coming out here tonight. And the reason we're here is because your Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, bases all emergency response on the premise that a strong or resilient community only exists if the individuals are prepared to take care of themselves in a disaster. Okay, so that sounds like what I'm saying is it's on you. Okay, we don't want this headline again, because you need to be prepared. Does that mean the county of Hawaii or the state of Hawaii is not going to do anything to help you when something happens? No, that's not the case. But if you're prepared, that gives us or allows us to have more resources to help the people who weren't prepared. That's what we're saying here, okay? And that's what FEMA bases this on. The more people that prepare themselves prior to a disaster, the better the community can respond and recover. Okay. Purpose for tonight. Okay, so I've been asked to talk about just a few things. General emergency preparedness. Okay, now most of you picked up a hurricane information packet. I'm sorry I ran out. I didn't anticipate such a large crowd, but if you didn't get a hurricane information packet, you're in luck. You can come down to the Hawaii County Civil Defense Agency at 920 Ululani Street and pick one up yourself. We'll give you a tour of the facility, because it is your emergency operations center. That's where your county and state responders come to prepare and respond during an emergency. Okay, so our office, people will walk up to it, oh no, it's like something special. It is, maybe, but they're always intimidated to come into the civil defense office. But it's there for you, and we welcome you, and we encourage you to come see what we do there, so that you have a better feeling about what the county is going to do and able to do for you in a disaster. Okay, so if you picked up that sheet, the General Hurricane Information Packet, this is a packet that we give out to the media and to be prepared for the hurricane season. It's specific. It's actually part of what we call the Harry Kim system, HKS. Okay, Harry's back, so we're back to the HKS system. Okay. The first thing you'll recognize in there, oh wait, why am I talking? You're supposed to be first.
You're just supposed to welcome everybody.
Okay, well I've welcomed everyone, and now
Very, very well.
the second thing you need to know is to have a plan. The first thing you need to know is what the threat is, and so we're going to find out what that threat is right now.
To talk to us about hurricane science and forecasting, we've got Brian Hong here from the National Weather Service.
All right, good afternoon or good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Hong with the National Weather Service. If you don't know, we have a small office here in Hilo, right by the airport, right past the post office. Our main office is in Honolulu, is where all the forecasting and the tropical cyclone forecasters are at. But just to let you know, we're a small satellite office. We are meteorological technicians. We gather data and we do a lot of number crunching and making sure forecast products are disseminated. We don't actually forecast, but one of the things that we do is public outreach and come out and talk to you guys and educate. And we're here, we're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. So if you have any questions or anybody, you can call us at any time between those times. I'm basically going to talk about the outlook for this year, 2017. So what we have is tropical season being from June to December, technically. But a tropical can form at any time of the year, okay? As far as National Weather Service, our main job, our main mission, objective is to protect life and property, right? For the safety of everybody, okay? Is this me? No. You're all looking at me? I thought it was no. All right, so an average season for tropicals is 4 to 5 tropical cyclones, and this is looking at the area which is the date line at 180 and 140. And this is just showing, this is what's called a spaghetti plot, and this is 5 years worth of tropical cyclone tracks. And you can see most of them generally go to the south of Hawaii. Big Island being right there. It's hard to see, sorry. Just go over some terminology: hurricane, tropical storm, and tropical depression. Okay, if you hear depression, that is the weakest level, the lowest level of a tropical cyclone. Now, tropical cyclone is a very generic term used to say anything that is a low pressure system that's spinning in the tropics. Okay, so less than 39 miles per hour, that means tropical depression. So if you hear storm, there's a wide spread. The winds are anywhere between 39 and 73 miles per hour, okay? And once you get to hurricane, 74 miles per hour. So it's really important to even, when you hear tropical storm, because there could be a big difference. 39 can mean your stuff in your yard can fall over, but something like 73 miles per hour can really push it and really damage your house and start and put stuff through the windows, you know. Since 1950, 4 direct hits. Last year we had 1, Darby, and 2 years before that we had Isel. So it's very rare for a tropical storm to have a direct hit. Now Dot happened in 1959. It wasn't directly, but it was close enough to where it impacted the island of Kauai. So the first 3 that you see, Dot, Iwa, and Iniki, were Kauai, the island of Kauai. All right, so over the since 1970, as you can see, 2 years ago, we had the most active tropical cyclones. Now, 16 means within that basin that have either formed in the Central Pacific or have formed east and has moved in, okay? So this was an El Nino year, and so were these right here. And this is the years where Iwa and Iniki happened as well. Just to give you an idea of what it looks like. Okay, by month, okay, as you see, it's February the only month with 0, but every month has them, most often occurring in August. That's when our ocean sea surface temperatures are the warmest, so naturally we would have more cyclone activities. Okay. And this is from 1971 to 2016 statistics. All right, I'm gonna go real fast, and then at the end you can ask me questions. And I'll be here till the end as well, until 7:38. So if you want to ask me questions, please do. Okay, this is 2016. We had 8 storms, and there's 2 that formed right here. And Darby was the one that hit us. Okay. Now Darby was a tropical storm compared to a hurricane, much weaker winds. But just to let you know, a weaker system can produce a lot of rainfall. flooding, flash flooding, coastal erosion, as you see here. And even through the years, as weak storms come through, you can have, or stronger storms come through, like a hurricane, and then you have one weak one come, and it's just a matter of time where structures and trees just one last time, and then it falls over with even 20-mile-per-hour winds. You'll never know. So this is flash flooding, obviously, and I'll let civil defense talk about this. I'll go over here. Again, with roads, you're kind of eyeballing it. You're not sure how deep it is, but you're taking a chance pretty much if you're trying to go through the road, because it can even affect the structure. And pretty much, there's another video that I showed 2 weeks ago with the entire road collapsing underneath because of the power of the water. So please do not drive through flooded roads, okay? All right, tropical storm. This is an example of a text tropical cyclone warning. Now, this tells you what the tropical cyclone is doing, location, as far as it references a geographical area saying 10 miles northeast of Pahala, very close, and moving so-and-so miles per hour to the west, for example. What does that mean for you if you're living in Hilo? Well, this is not the product that you want to look for. This is just for the tropical cyclone. So on our webpage, or even through the NOAA NOAA Weather Radio, there's going to be local forecasts. Now, a tropical cyclone warning comes out, is issued, updated every 6 hours, once it gets close enough to about 2 days prior. Your local warnings, if you're in the area of Ka'u, South Point, Kona, North Kohala, South Kohala, Honoka'u Coast, those are all separate areas, and those will be updated every 3 hours. So that's the information that you want to continue to be updated with. Because this really means, okay, that's what the storm's doing, but it doesn't tell you much. What does it mean for me? All right. Madeline and Lester were two storms that were very close calls, and you can see the eye of the storm. So that's usually an indication, 74-mile-per-hour winds right there. That's how we do it to classify it as a hurricane. Once it develops a very significant, well-defined eye, then it's 75 miles per hour, at least. Okay, again, 2016 hurricane season. We showed it before. Now compare it to the year before. We had 15. Actually, we had 16. So this was a very active tropical cyclone season, but we had no direct hits or land. So it's just to show you that even this year, 2017, is expected to be an average to slightly above average season as far as tropical cyclone activity, but you have to be prepared because you can just it's all it takes is to do it for a direct hit, okay? And this is just the overlays of various satellite images for 2015. You can see it's all around the Hawaiian island chain. And all right, so how we determine the tropical cyclone activity for a season is El Nino. We look at what's called an El Nino index, and it's basically just the entire equatorial waters, sea surface temperatures just below Hawaii. Okay, 27 degrees Celsius is kind of what we consider average. And so we look at computer models that forecast out to 6 months, a year, and we say, oh, it's going to be 2 degrees Celsius above, and then we say it's going to be a very active. So that's the basis of how we determine is it going to be active, is it going to be a busy tropical cyclone season. Okay, and as you can see, we're going from April to June. Of course, it's going to start getting warmer, and it continues to get warmer until August. That's where it peaks, and then it goes back down. Okay, the anomaly is what we're seeing as far as the difference compared to the average. So a lot of white and a little bit of yellow, so we're slightly above average. This is just showing that we're anywhere from 0.5 to maybe 1.5, maybe up to 2 in some areas. But the equatorial waters is pretty much average to about 1 degree Celsius. So that's what we meteorologists look at. Okay, so we're slightly above that we're looking at for 2017. So we're expecting 5 to 8 tropical cyclones. So we're basically running computer models not just once, but many times, and it all produces a little bit of different output. So what we did was we averaged them out, and we determined this number. Okay. Again, this is the main page. This is what's called a tropical weather outlook. Okay, whether there's storms or not, there is a product out here every day. If there's nothing, then it'll just say no tropical cyclones. If there is, then you'll see it on one map, and you'll see all the separate storms, and you can click on it, and then you'll see the forecast track for each storm. Okay. Again, issued every 6 hours for the hurricane track. Let me just talk about what this cone is right here, okay? Now, statistically, what we look at is the errors a forecaster makes compared to what really happened, and we average that out, and we determine, okay, how accurate are we as forecasters? And we determine, from the past 5 years, that this is the amount of error. So what we're looking at is called the cone of error. And basically, all this is saying is, within that cone, 66% likelihood that the center of the storm, which is right there, will be within that white cone. 33% that it'll be outside. But just so you know, how it's produced is due to forecast statistics or performance. And this right here, hatched region, is just the 3 to 5 day. Okay. A reliability of the forecast, we're much more proficient in within the 3 days. 3 to 5, still, long term. So you want to just keep looking at it. Okay, and it gives you the information as far as the center of the storm and the time. These dots are every 12 hours, and it'll tell you if it's a tropical cyclone or a hurricane. Okay. Now the website gives you the option to turn off the wind cone on and off, or the track on and off. And this is for Ivan. Again, 66% within the cone, 33% outside the cone. And when you look at the other areas where the center of the storm currently is, you're going to see red areas, and those are areas where they are currently in a hurricane warning. For pink, it would be hurricane watch. So that would be areas further out a little bit. Okay, same thing. Wind speed probabilities. So again, on the website, there is an option to, if you're concerned with 34 knots, 50 knots, or 64 knots, depending on, maybe you have a weaker structure home, then you want to look at the 34 knots. If you're not so concerned, if you have a, concrete building, then maybe you want to look at 50 knots. But what this is telling you, and you can click on it, and you can, every 6 hours, it's going to show you the probability of 34 knot winds or 50 knot winds, okay? And that's just kind of a tool for you guys to make a decision, go drive or not go drive, put your stuff inside or not inside, okay? The difference between the watch and the warning, the watch is if a hurricane or a tropical storm is not like immediately threatening, but it's something you want to keep an eye out, continue to check the website, listen to NOAA weather radio. When we're in a warning status, and that means the conditions for a tropical storm or hurricane is expected. So imminent is most likely about to happen, and that's within 36 hours. So that's a day and a half. Okay, so just know the difference between the watch and the warning. Warning is a lot more serious. Watch is just, okay, keep an eye out, okay? All right, I'm just gonna blow through this. Preparedness. Again, here's my contact information, phone number at our office. Again, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4 p.m. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Still a 33% chance that the eye is going to wind up outside the cone. And then in addition to that, like the hurricane force winds may extend like 40 or 80 miles outside of the eye. Okay, so just because you know, the eye is there and you're over here, you may still experience hurricane force winds. So the more useful graph, like Brian mentioned, is that wind distribution probability. Yeah.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Dennis. Next up, we have Barry Periat from your Hawaii County Civil Defense. He'll be discussing emergency supplies and evacuation planning for tsunami and hurricane. Barry?
Okay, now we're back where we left off. Now that you know what the threat is, the next thing is you need to have a plan. Okay, the ready.gov website, which is a FEMA website, has a family emergency plan on there, a template for one. What I've handed out tonight, looks like there's still some over there, and in this hurricane packet, there's also a family plan. That's pretty much the FEMA plan modified slightly by us, but you need to have a plan. And so what does that plan need to have in it? Places you frequent. Why would you think places you frequent need to be in an family emergency plan? Because that's where you're most likely going to be. Okay, so you need contact information. You need to know who's going to be where, what days they're supposed to be there, and all that. So if something happens and you're separated, you at least know where to begin your search, right? Okay. Personally identifiable information, PII, all that stuff you got to keep under lock and key, all the stuff human resources yells at you about and all that good stuff. You need to know it for your family. Each family member, it needs to be there and it needs to be kept. So you need to have that on hand, right? Because you never know when you're going to need it. A meeting place. Now, if you have an evacuation plan for your house, you need to know if there's a fire or something, you have to get out of the house, where are you going to meet up? Okay, you're going to meet up at the mango tree, where are you going to go? Everyone needs to know that. Everyone needs to understand that. And oh, if the mango tree is on fire too, you know, we're going to go 2 blocks down here to Auntie's house, okay? Now, that's all fine if everyone's home. You also need to have a meeting place designated where if everyone's scattered, you know you're going to work your way towards to be there. So a distance meeting place. I know a lot of people use mile marker 17. That's going to be a very crowded place on Saddle Road. But everyone knows where it is, and they go there, and it's safe. Nothing's going to happen at mile marker 17, okay? Yeah. Utilities. Okay, you all have utilities coming into your household. Everybody needs to know where the cutoff switch is, how to turn those utilities off. Because if you got gas, you know, you have an earthquake, you need to check the gas, need to shut it down. You don't need a gas leak going on because fire is the biggest hazard following an earthquake. 1, because you don't have water to fight the fire, and 2, you got all these gas leaks going and making it a dangerous situation. Okay, so your utilities, your water, your gas, your electricity, you need to know where to cut them off, and you need to know how to do it. Everybody needs to know how to do that because that's an action you probably need to take during a disaster. Vital records. What are we talking about vital records? Life insurance policies, other insurance policies, that PII, Social Security card, you know, important documents that you have. You need to keep those documents in a portable, fireproof container, preferably one you can lock, so that if something happens, boom, you know where it is, you grab it, you go. You got your documents with you, right? Medications. If you have prescription medication, I know there's a program to get you prescription medication during a disaster, but you know, you're still taking your chance. So you need to consider your medications. Like if you've got medication that needs to be refrigerated, maybe you need to have like a small little cooler. I know they used to have 6-pack coolers. I haven't seen one recently. And keep a couple of those ice packets in your freezer so that, hey, if I've got to go, I take my medicine, at least keep it chilled until we can get someplace where we can keep it cool again, okay? So these are considerations you need to take. You need to take your medication with you anytime you evacuate. Okay? Pets. A lot of us have pets. They're part of the family. You need to have a plan on what you're going to do with your pet if you evacuate or have issues or something happens to your home. Okay? Part of the family, they deserve care too, right? And I think you'll talk a little bit about in the sheltering. Okay. So that's it in a nutshell. Not a whole lot, okay? But contact information and what you're going to do initially. That's all you really need for a family plan. So everyone, once you get it together, then you can assess the situation and you can go from there. The key is being able to account for everyone, because that reduces the stress level greatly. Okay? So let's talk evacuation now, because that's what I was told I needed to talk about. Okay? So it's one of our primary responsibilities to warn you. Now, we don't make a decision whether there's a hurricane watch, hurricane warning. That's not our kuleana. That National Weather Service does that, okay? We're just telling you what they said, okay? But it's our job to get that information to you. How are we going to warn you? How does your Hawaii County Civil Defense look out for you? What's our primary means? DC should know. Okay, sirens. Okay, now under the hurricane system, when we go into a hurricane warning, he's going to sound the siren, okay? When we go into a hurricane warning, when the National Weather Service says, hey, it's coming, we'll sound the siren. When we sound the siren, what does that mean? Turn on the radio. That's exactly what it means. Why? Because there's going to be a civil defense message playing, telling you what the situation is and what you need to do, okay? That's the primary means of notification. We will also notify you via text or email, okay? You can sign up on our website, which doesn't show up very well there, but hawaiicounty.gov, click on the civil defense section, and you can sign up. They'll ask you to do a password so you can control it, so you can turn it off. Lots of people say, hey, I'm tired of getting these alerts. How do I turn it off? Well, if you sign up, you can turn it off. If you call us, give us our information, we put it in, then we got to go in and pull you back out. Okay, some people actually don't want to get the alerts once they start getting them. Okay, we're not the only source for these. We'll provide you information specific to Hawaii County. Okay, the Pacific Disaster Center also has a notification you can sign up for, and you can pick regions and you can pick specific hazards you want to be notified about. And more people turn that one off because it's constant. Okay? So those are two ways we will get the information out to you. If those fail, yes?
What's commercial radio?
That's DC. your local radio stations.
All day long. How do I know that that's the station?
All of them will get the message. We have a very good relationship with the radio stations. We'll send them a message, ask them to play it, boom, they'll play it. Okay, we don't use we try not to use the emergency alert system, because what that does is it interrupts their programming and broadcasting. We cut right in, we take over, it's ours, ha ha ha. You know. We try not to do that because they respond very well to us. When we need to get the message out to you, they're there, okay? And all the radio stations get it. Okay, we even send it to Maui because your neighbors in Hawaii, they listen to Maui radio stations, so they get the information. Okay, yes, ma'am. It does not. It will be the same sound. Okay, now this is what's supposed to. We test it. We only sound it for 1 minute. Okay, sometimes it goes a little long. When it's for real, the siren is going to sound for 3 minutes. Stop for a minute, sound for 3 minutes, stop for a minute, sound for 3 minutes, okay? During that time, don't wait for it to sound the third time. Go ahead and turn your radio on because the message will be playing, okay? But it will be the same tone as for tsunami, okay? Nixle, as you said, is a police system, and that is put out by the different districts, police districts. The senior officer on that district will put that message out. They do their messaging independent of civil defense. They primarily only put out messages for traffic because they are responsible for traffic. Okay, so you won't get a civil defense message over Nixle, to answer your question. Okay. The next thing you need to know is, should you evacuate? Okay, that's everyone's number one question, I think. So let's look at flooding and storm surge. If you live in the tsunami evacuation zone, or you live alongside a stream that can flood, okay, or has flooded in the past, or if you're even in the 100-year floodplain, you should probably consider evacuating, because these storm systems generate a lot of rain. You know, in 2000 they had that. It wasn't even a tropical depression, or it was a tropical depression. It came through, dropped all kinds of rain, washed out the Cava Flats Road, okay? In 2006, was it 2006? We had the 40 days and 40 nights. Was that 2005 or 2006? I don't remember. I just moved here, and 40 days and 40 nights. I used to like rain, so I moved to Hilo, and 40 days and 40 nights, I was like, don't like rain anymore. Okay, so if you're in a situation like that, you really need to consider evacuating, okay? When we go to winds, high winds, if your house was built before 1986, it was not built to any wind standards, okay? Like my house was built in 1946. You know, I look at it wrong, it shakes, okay? So if your house was built prior to 1986, and we've got something more than a tropical storm coming in, you probably want to consider evacuating, okay? If your house is recent, then it should be okay. Should be. Okay. When should you begin your evacuation? That's a good question, isn't it? For hurricane, when do you think you should begin your evacuation? We go into watch 48 hours out. We go into warning 36 hours out. So when do you think you should evacuate? 24 hours? Not bad. We shoot for 12 hours, okay? And that varies based on conditions, whether it's day or night, the strength of the storm, how fast the storm's moving. There's a lot of different factors that look in there, but we generally look for 12 hours. But with a hurricane, you're going to get lots of warning from us, okay? You're going to get lots of information, so you're knowing when the storm's coming. So what we're expecting you to do is to prepare your house, your grounds, and your house, and your evacuation kit, all that good stuff, prior to that 12 hours and be ready to start going, okay? Because if you get to the shelter, if a lot of people are evacuating, it's going to take a while to get in the shelter, right? Okay? So we like to try to shoot for 12 hours. So be prepared to go. We may call it later, we may call it earlier. It all depends on what the situation is, okay? What about this guy? The tsunami. When should you start your evacuation? When you hear that tone and it's not a hurricane. If you feel an earthquake and it's strong enough to knock you down, just start heading up, okay, inland. Now, what's the basic rule for this island? Really? Okay. You'll be safe if you do that. You will be. What we generally say and what we've been told by the scientists, because nobody at Civil Defense is a scientist, okay? We rely on the experts. So what the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center has told us is, if you're a quarter mile inland, 50-foot elevation, you should be okay on this island. That's this island, okay? Now, obviously, if you live in Kapoho or you live down in Keaukaha, might be a little different, okay? But that's the general rule of thumb, okay? Now, when you hear that siren and we tell you a tsunami's coming, we generally try to start an evacuation not later than 3 hours before the arrival time of that first wave, okay? We generally try and start not later than 3 hours before that first wave. Not possible on a local tsunami. You feel the earthquake, you just need to go, okay? Don't wait for anyone to tell you, just go, okay? Okay, it all depends on where it is, but we're talking anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes, okay? I believe the time from Halape in 1975 to Hilo, it was less than 15 minutes to get there, I believe, okay? The local tsunami is a lot more dangerous than the distant tsunami, okay? So, ground shakes, uh-oh, move. Yes?
Are we supposed to evacuate to this school?
Okay, that's an excellent question. If you'll notice in this hurricane information shelter, it lists all the shelters. Okay, those are potential shelters. Okay, and those are for hurricanes. Okay, not all of those will be open. That's why you need to listen to the radio, because we are going to play on the radio or have the radio announce which shelters are specifically open. We have a separate list for tsunamis. Okay, and that it's primarily county facilities, and they're out of the inundation zone, and we will provide that information on where you're to go. Okay, but De Silva's not on the tsunami evacuation list. Okay, yes, ma'am. We didn't come here to talk about lava flows. It's elevated threat. Okay. I won't say it's due, but it is an elevated threat. And your folks, or our friends at Hawaiian Volcanoes Observatory, keep an eye on both Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa. And when something they don't like happens, they let us know. Okay? And they haven't talked to us in a while. So I'm feeling okay now, but it is an elevated situation. Okay? Okay. Okay. And we were just talking about this. Where do you go? Okay. I come from the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Okay. I moved to the Mississippi Gulf Coast in 1979. What did I get? I got a hurricane within 2 weeks. Where do I go? Good question. Okay. Fortunately, my dad was in the Air Force. We went into a shelter on the base, and it had no windows, kind of like my office, has no windows, and we were fine. Okay? We don't have that situation here. We don't have a lot of facilities on this island, other than my office, which can withstand a Category 4 hurricane. Okay? We don't have very many options here. So where do you go? Okay? Because I was on the Gulf Coast, had that wonderful experience going to the evacuation shelter, you know what happened the next time we had a hurricane? Out of the path of the storm. Why? Because shelters are not fun. You're in there with a bunch of strangers. It's loud, it's noisy. Your stress level just goes up. It's just not fun. If you have the option of sheltering with friends and family outside of the path of the storm, that would be, I think, your primary consideration. Okay? If that's not feasible, then the evacuation shelter is the place to go. And like I said, we will announce on the radio what evacuation centers are open, okay? What shelters are open. So listen to your radio, because even though there's a bunch of them listed in here, that doesn't mean that that particular shelter will be open for that particular incident, okay? We just give you the list of all the potential shelters. Did that answer your question? Okay, and boom, now I got a question mark. So you can ask me anything you want, as long as it's about tsunamis or preferably hurricanes, because I didn't come prepared to talk about lava. It's hot, though. Yes, ma'am. Okay, you've heard the siren go off, and there hasn't been a message. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, which is part of the, I butcher NOAA all the time, National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. There we go, NOAA. They're part of NOAA, but they're not part of the National Weather Service. They're part of the Pacific, they're the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. Totally different animal. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay, because He's with NOAA, okay? And mhm. Understand, ma'am. And what we do is we put out the message on the radio. That's our primary means. We do our mass notification, which is the text and the email. And then we know we have areas that are hard to reach that maybe don't have poor radio coverage, or sometimes it fails. The sirens do fail. They're mechanics, they're mechanical machines. They do fail at times. Okay, so we do send out mobile patrols, which are police cars or fire trucks using their PA system to make announcements. So we have multiple ways. We send helicopters along the coastline. The Civil Air Patrol flies the coastline. We are not just going to stop at a radio message. We will try our best to get the information to you. Oh. Mm-hmm. I'm sure of that, ma'am. Have you signed up with our notification? The civil defense notification? Okay. Because we always put out a message on there. Okay. Like with the hurricane or the earthquake, the other morning, it was just a 4.3. We still put a message out on that. Okay. Because it is a local earthquake, some people did feel it. Okay. So if there's a threat or a threat or just for peace of mind, we do try and put information out.
Reports usually about the top of the hour. Unless, when things get a little more serious, then you usually probably do it twice an hour. Usually maybe sometimes we'll kind of go wall to wall with information. So if you do tune in, you're hearing a song, it's like, how come we're not saying anything? Usually at the top of the hour, most of the time, is when we run the civil defense reports.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
When I look at the list of the shelters, you list medical support centers and pet-friendly shelters. So what is in place for those shelters that make them a medical support center?
Okay. We've gone round and round, and with that, because it's a Department of Health, Kuleana, they have our nurses in that, but it's very complicated issue right now, so any shelter right now would be a medical shelter. All right, yeah, it'll be addressed better here, but it's very complicated. Okay, pet shelters, specific shelters are designated as pet shelters. Yes, yes, ma'am.
I could sidetrack you again. That picture, is that an infrared?
I don't know.
I just wondered.
Okay. You can come in our office. We can give you it. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Well, you're welcome, sir. And that's the thing. He came during Tsunami Awareness Month. We had an open house in the Hilo EOC. But we do open up the EOC. If you want to come in, you want to get information, you just want to see what it's all about, we do welcome you to come in. We're not going to chase you away because it is your EOC. It is your Emergency Operations Center. And we think it helps to provide peace of mind to you if you understand what's happening there. And it also helps us do our job better if you understand why we're asking you to do things. Okay? Is that enough? Yes, ma'am. Yes, the wonderful king tide that I've never heard of before this year, but seems to happen every year. Okay, that I would have to defer to Noah on that.
More than just an average 1 foot high and low. So yeah, it's going to be. It's the first time I've heard of it too, like last month.
Right.
It's basically just an added half foot to a foot but it does a half foot can use for certain coastal areas that it can be 100 foot ammunition depending on how shallow it is.
May, June, July, and then it should be the king tide goes away. But it seems to be, from what I understand, an annual event.
Like
generally
four
during that time
times
frame.
during the year where you get your highest tides. And that's when the moon is closest to the earth as it's orbiting. Okay? So when the moon and the sun are opposite or together and they're very close, there'll be around 2 or 3 times during the year we'll get what's called the king tide. It can be exacerbated by sea level rise or something. Yeah.
Thank you, Barry. We've got a short announcement from Arlena Agbayani from the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. Arlena Agbayani, Public Relations at Hawaii Emergency Management Agency in Oahu. And our bunker is located at Diamond Head Crater. So if you guys come to Oahu, give me a call. I'll give you a tour of our 100-year-old bunker. But the reason that I'm here is to promote our emergency plan, since Barry touched basis on that. And there's a whole purpose for it for being this large, because we want you to be able to share it with your ohana at home, have it prepared before any type of disaster. Everything is pre-printed. You just need to spend a couple of minutes going down the lines, filling in the blanks, and you can post it on your fridge or your wall. So I do have them back there. Come and see me afterwards. And this emergency plan, it has our website in the bottom. If you have any questions, and email me, I'll get back to you. It goes well with our Go Bag checklist. So pretty much gives you recommendations of what you should have. And if you have any special needs or kupuna or keikis, then of course you'll need to make sure you have that with you. And the new thing that our administrator just mentioned about 2-3 weeks ago is changing from 7 days emergency supply to 14 days. And it's because of other states that have gone through a major disaster. It takes about that long to get everything back together, especially the priorities, infrastructure, roads, highways, poles, and whatnot. And for your family, you pretty much have to kind of be on your own. And it's good for you also to know your neighbors, so you guys can kind of, kukua each other up until everything settles down. So I'll be here till the end. Feel free to ask me any questions, and I'll try to answer you the best that I can, okay? Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Arlena. Up next, we have Debbie Weeks with Hawaii Red Cross, but also in attendance, we have wonderful volunteer Tom Carson. So any questions about evacuation kits and sheltering, they'll be here, and Debbie's presenting.
Thank you for being here. It shows that you really care about preparing yourself and your ohana for the potential of disaster, and we have that here. We have storms, we have lava, we have tsunamis, and we're remote. So that's why that's very good advice, where most of the advice is to have 3 to 7 days of disaster supplies. Well, you want to have more here. And what I'm going to speak about are what you should have as an emergency kit for taking care of yourself and your family, and then I'm also going to talk about sheltering. So the first thing is, if everybody should probably have a handout that has get a kit in it, or either from the Red Cross or from the emergency management. Now, if you don't have one handy, just raise your hand and Tom will bring you one. Because I want to go over that. I was going to have everybody tell me what goes in a kit, but I don't really have enough time. So really quickly, water. You need water, 1 gallon per person per day. And that sounds like a lot, but that's drinking and cleaning yourself, and it's just critical. You cannot run out of water, potable water. Of course, food. Most of the food you want is non-perishable, because think about it, you're not going to have your refrigerator, your power's going to be out, likely if you're off the grid even because of the storm, if it's a bad enough storm. So can opener, if you don't have those pull-top cans, so the can opener's in your kit. Flashlights, radio, batteries, spare batteries, medications and your medical items. Do not count on the system being able to provide those for you in the first few days especially. So if you have life necessary prescriptions, try to make sure that you know where they are, so when you have to make your kit, you can make sure those come along with you. Of course, personal hygiene, Copies of documents, I think Barry mentioned some things. Cell phone with charger, just in case the cell phone system's still there. Family contacts, cash, bedding supplies, change of clothes, towels, you can never have enough towels, dishes are nice, and tools. And you know, like those little handy tools are great. So I know ours is kind of small print, and there is a larger print in the next table, but really, I can't impress upon you enough. This is something you do now. You don't wait until hurricane warning. You do this now. And I'll also tell you that a friend of mine was very good about putting a kit together, and he had several shelves out in the shed, but he never changed out his canned stuff. So what you want to do is when you go shopping, like maybe you go to Costco or you go to Cost You Less and you buy a bunch, you kind of shift. It's like, okay, I just got a whole bunch of canned stuff. I'll take the canned stuff that I have put aside for my emergency supply, and I'll use that, and I'll put the new stuff there. Because canned goods will last a while, but not forever, especially in a salty, acidic environment. And it's just a little helpful hint. The other thing, you know, we've all talked about make a plan. You do want to have a plan. And that involves when you have the hurricane watch. So a hurricane or a tropical storm is formed and it might be heading this way. That's a few days' notice. That's when you go out in your yard and you take out any of the things that if it gets really windy is going to go flying. You secure things. You think about, okay, do I have any picture windows? Do I have to get ready to put a board over that picture window? What am I going to do with my pets that, you know, if you have a dog that's outside during the day or something like that? Or you don't want to wait until the winds and stuff start howling to say, oh, where's my kitty? Because kitty's going to go take care of himself if you haven't already secured them. So think in advance of those things because you have time. Use the time well. By then, you should already have your kit. Now, if you wait until we start getting a hurricane watch, guess what everybody in your neighborhood's going to be doing? They're going down to the store to buy water and buy food, and pretty soon, one, it's going to be a very long line, and two, stores will run out of things. And that has happened, that does happen. So if you're prepared well in advance with the things you can, then there's more resources for everybody who kind of waited till the last minute. Don't be the person who waits till the last minute. Okay? I hope that makes sense. I like to eat, so I'm not going to wait till the last minute. You can tell I like to eat. So we get to the hurricane warning. And we got like a day and a half. And things are getting a little bit, you know, you're hearing National Weather Service announcements. We get very busy because we have to, with partners in civil defense and parks, we have to be ready to open all these shelters. Now, for a hurricane, there's only, right now, only the Department of Education has sites that are deemed by the state hurricane safe. So that means you got a gym in a high school, and that's what we give you when we have a hurricane. So what I do now when we have a hurricane is I'm working, but 24/7. But in the past, and especially with tsunamis, because I have a lot of friends that live up in Kaumana, and it's like, I'm not going to go to a shelter because I can bring all my food and my kit and everything that I had up to my friend's house, and we can have a good time and be really safe. So if you can shelter in place, you're not traveling around as much, you don't have to transport all your supplies, that's the best. But if you got big trees, you're in an inundation zone, if there is a danger, then you do want to consider maybe family or friends. Now, if that's not an option, then you've got your materials. You have to bring all those things to the shelter because an evacuation center, a hurricane shelter, has a place on the floor for you and some nice Red Cross and county workers to help you register, okay? You need to bring your water, your food, your blankets, your clothes, some entertainment for the children. The Red Cross does hand out like coloring books on the back of this emergency disaster kit list. There's a coloring for you. We're always ready, right? And activities books, but we don't even have very much of that to offer. So a lot of our people, that the most vulnerable population is the homeless. So there's going to be a lot of homeless people in the shelter. And the thing that was touched upon before, someone was concerned about disability access. All these shelters are accessible. Now, the thing you have to consider is what we have are volunteer nurses. We do not have doctors. We do not have, oxygen. We don't have anything but a room that's safe during a storm. We do have some nurses that are on call, but they're there just mostly to make sure, anybody that's coming down with something, we keep them separate from the rest of the population. If somebody has like an infection, they'll help them so that they don't get worse. But Red Cross has a few extra durable goods like wheelchairs and such to help people, but we make it accessible, but we're not a hospital. Okay, so just make it clear that we're doing the best we can to make the safe environment accessible to people, but there are limits. I actually have a Red Cross nurse right here, and she's nodding. So really, if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer. The other thing that we do, if we get a long-term problem where, say, we had a lot of flooding and we have 150 people that cannot go back to their homes because they're flooded out, there's no power. We open long-term shelters. That's a whole different thing, where we set up cots, where through doing partnerships with restaurants and paying for food, the Red Cross will provide a place for people to stay if there's a large number of people who have lost the use of their homes. That's usually not what happens with these storms, because there was a little bit with a couple of years ago with the cell. But usually they're open for 2 or 3 days just to get past the storm, and when it's safe for people to go home, let them go home. So that it's really a short-term thing, that it can be a lot of fun if you have the right attitude, but it can also be very stressful. So that's another thing that I encourage people to consider, taking care of themselves as far as, you're getting nerved up, breathe deep, talk to each other. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is we have a Safe and Well website. So if you go on redcross.org, if we have an emergency where people get separated, if there's a large disaster where you're not sure where your family is, Red Cross runs this online service. So you go redcross.org, look up Safe and Well, you look up your state, and you put your name and your address and your phone number in there. People can see that you're safe and well, and then you can go in and see that other people are safe and well. We won't tell you where they are because there's privacy issues, but you can see that they're safe and well. And if there's a phone number in here, so it says be informed, there's a phone number, 1-800-RED-CROSS, you can call if you don't have internet and get on Safe and Well. So that's if things go pear-shaped and we start losing track of family members, that's there to help you to feel better. Now, real quick, any questions about anything? Yes? Well, there are hospitals, and then we do have partner agencies that do provide that specific help. Red Cross doesn't turn anybody away, but we can't provide that level of assistance. So, the what I can think of is if you call the Hawaii Island United Way, they have a 211 information number. You can call it 24/7, and you can ask that specific question. The only thing they'll ask of you is your zip code. And you can ask that specific question and see what they say. I think I'm going to do that too because it's a really good question. We do strive to have everybody have access to these emergency shelters. Any other questions?
People that are hooked up with them. For example, with ISEL, I think the Office of Aging was coordinated services, had some plans in place for people who were hooked up with them. So it's good, you know, when, because in emergencies it's always, you need a buddy. Everybody needs somebody to look out for each other. So if you have a particular person who has nobody on this island, I would suggest that this person is hooking up with an agency, like, you know, Office of